kinds of stuff we have seen. Okay, so the users and all use cases, what Splunk, how it is used, everything, the definition of Splunk, all those things we have seen earlier. And in Splunk, they are the search head. One minute. Search head, indexer, forwarders. Okay, and again in forwarders there are three types of forwarders: license manager, deployment server, cluster master, and again deployer is also a component, is also there. Okay, that also we'll discuss. So all these components are there. So out of these components, search head, indexer, and forwarders are the basic components. The basic components in the sense, in order to have a Splunk environment, these should be there at least. At least these three should be there. If these three things are not there, then it is not said to be a Splunk environment itself. Okay, whatever you are trying to do, you cannot achieve that. You cannot get your results. Okay, if there are no forwarders, you cannot forward your data. If there is no indexer, you cannot, your data cannot be, the forward data cannot be indexed. And if there is no search head, the data cannot be searched, and it cannot produce the results itself. So these three are the basic things. Okay, so first of all, let us discuss these things, and then we'll be moving further. Okay, so yesterday we have seen this, yesterday and in subsequent classes, in the previous classes, in the workshop as well, we have seen this architecture, right? So what we have thought, these are the log files. Okay, these are the left side, which we are having the servers, web server, test server, networking server. These things are there. These are the servers, and log files will be there, we have thought, right? So these log files will be transferring the log files, whatever the data is there, that will be the files, that the things will be forwarded to the storage, which is a Splunk instance, right? To the storage, they will transfer the files. Now what happens, the log files will store in the storage, where the searching, which is another component of the Splunk, okay, which is another instance of the Splunk, the searching unit will searches the storage, and it produces the result, right? This is the thing we have considered. So in ordinary terms, this is called as the log files, this is called as storage, this is called as the searching unit. But in Splunk terms, the same thing is called as the, in Splunk terms, the same thing is called as, these are called as forwarders. Forwarders in the sense, these are the web servers, right? These are the web servers. In order to get the data into our Splunk environment, in order to get the data into our Splunk environment, we will be installing some agents called as forwarders. What are those? We will be installing some agents called as forwarders on the servers. Okay, so these forwarders are responsible for transferring the data from the servers to the, whether it may be web server, or it may be test server, network server, or in the router switch, whatever it may be. So whatever it may be, these data will be transferring into the Splunk. This data will be forwarded by the forwarders that we install on these machines. Okay, we install forwarders on these machines. These forwarders will be responsible for forwarding the data into this Splunk environment. We have thought storage, right? This storage is called as the indexer. What is that? Indexer. This is called as the indexer. Okay, the data will store here. This data will store in an indexer. That is the thing. And this is called as the search head, where the searching unit we have thought, right? This is called as the technical name for that is search head. Okay, that is the component. Search head is a component in Splunk. The search head is responsible for searching the indexer. Okay, the search head is responsible for searching the indexer and to produce the knowledge objects. Okay, so these are the basic three components which we have seen. Okay, so these are the forwarders, indexers, and search head. Forwarders forward the data from the client servers, from the log files, unstructured data, to the indexer. Okay, in the indexer the data will be stored, and the search head, which is another instance of the Splunk, it searches the data in the indexer, and it produces the particular charts, reports, graphs, whatever it may be, dashboards, all those kinds of stuffs. Okay, it is clear, right? So now let us study in detail one by one. First of all, forwarders. Okay, we'll start from forwarders. So in Splunk, as you have seen in the previous screen, there will be three types of forwarders, right? We have thought that there will be three types of forwarders. So what are those three types? They are the universal forwarder, lighter forwarder, and heavyweight forwarder. What are these three types? Universal forwarder, lighter forwarder, and heavyweight forwarder. Out of these three things, lighter forwarder has been discontinued. It has been discontinued from version 6.3. Okay, right now the version of Splunk is 8.2.2. 8. It has got 8.2.1 also. See, so aggressive it is actually. Splunk is, see, month by month it will be changing its versions. So some new feature they will be adding. So such is the aggressiveness of Splunk. Okay, so the lighter forwarder has been removed from version 6.3. Okay, so now we have got only two forwarders. What are those? Universal forwarder, and other is the heavyweight forwarder. So as the name suggests, by seeing its name, what does it mean? Universal forwarder. As name suggests, universal forwarder is nothing but it can forward data from any kind of operating system. Okay, what is that? Universal forwarders can forward data from any kind of operating system. Okay, so you are understanding, right, what I'm saying? So if you have got any doubt, you can ask me. Okay, if you got any doubt, you can in the middle also you can ask me. No issues. So universal forwarder is the thing where it can forward any kind of data. That means any kind of data which is available in any kind of operating system, whether it is Windows, Mac, Linux, Solaris, whatever it may be. In again Linux in several versions, from all versions, whatever it may be, it will be transferring the data. Whereas heavyweight forwarder is limited to popular operating systems. What is that? Heavyweight forwarder is limited to popular operating systems. That means only Windows, Linux, and Mac. Okay, it forwards the data only from these operating systems, Windows, Linux, and Mac. Whereas universal forwarder, it forwards the data from any kind of operating system. Now you should get a doubt actually here over here. So, however, data is being forwarded. Why to have such differences? Okay, why to have such differences? Why to have a universal forwarder and why to have a heavy forwarder again? Earlier lighter forwarder also. Okay, as it is not there, we won't discuss at all. That is a different topic. So we universal forwarder and heavyweight forwarder. Why to have those things at all? This is because I have told yesterday and today also, right now itself.
To collect input.
Excuse me.
In order to collect inputs, right?
Yeah, both will collect inputs. Both will collect the inputs.
That only we are using.
Yeah, both will collect the inputs, but they have put two things, right? Two forwarders they have put, universal forwarder and heavyweight forwarder. Now I am telling the differences. Okay. Yeah. So yes. So the thing is that we have thought that Splunk itself acts as everything. Okay. Splunk itself acts as everything. Splunk itself acts as an input. Splunk itself acts as a storage. Splunk itself acts as a searching unit, right? So if it is the case, then heavyweight forwarder is also a component of the Splunk. Okay, heavyweight forwarder is also an instance of the Splunk. So because it contains all these things, because it acts as everything, it is very, as name suggests, it is heavyweight actually. Even if you if you see the Splunk zip file also, if you try to install Splunk zip file, it will be 400 MB zip file itself. Once if you install on your machine, the installed version will be around 4 GB. Okay, because it has contains all these components. Okay, what are the components we have seen right now in the first screen? Actually, indexer, forwarder, such head, deployer, deployment server, index cluster, all those things, everything is there in this thing only. So it will be very heavyweight actually. So if I say that if I say that my product is used only for Windows and Linux and only for Mac only, anybody will buy my product? Nobody will buy, right? If they have limitations, nobody will buy, right? If Maruti Suzuki says that it cannot go off road, only it should go only on good roads only, then anybody buy Maruti Suzuki cars? Nobody will buy, right? It should go everywhere. Similarly, Splunk also has thought like that only, and they have specially designed this universal forwarder. Okay, they have specially made this universal forwarder. That's why you have got only two softwares in Splunk. You have got only two softwares actually. What are those? One is the Splunk Enterprise software, and the other is the universal forwarder software. Okay, all the other things, whatever you may specify, that comes under Splunk Enterprise software itself. Only universal forwarder is separate. Only the universal forward is separate because it has been designed lightweight, okay, for transferring the files, okay, for transferring all kinds of files. It has been designed with the lightweight as a lightweight component. So that's why it is the only thing. So that's why Splunk employs only two type of softwares. One is the Splunk interface software itself, and there is the universal forwarder. Please do remember that. Okay. Now, okay, that is fine. So if you see the exact differences of universal forwarder, so the universal forwarder and heavyweight forwarder. So universal forwarder, because it is lightweight, naturally it doesn't contain GUI. GUI means what? Graphical user interface. Just like this thing which we have seen yesterday, right? So just like the thing, the thing like that, this kind of interface, you cannot come into the interface like this and you cannot log in and all. Only from backend only you have to log in. For what? For universal forwarder. You cannot log in like this. Okay, there is no interface at all. There will be no interface at all. Only heavyweight forwarder will have. Again, heavyweight forwarder is nothing but a instance of Splunk, right? So it will have an interface like this and you can access all these things. But for universal forwarder, you do not have all these things. Only whatever you do, you have to do it from the backend only. Okay, please do, because the software itself is different. The installation files are different and everything is different. So you have to use, if there is no GUI, you have to use it from the backend. Okay. And second thing is that it contains an agent, which this is, we have already discussed. Only it contains an agent which works in almost all operating systems. It works in every kind of operating system. Okay. Whereas the heavyweight forwarder, it works only in Windows, Linux, and Mac. Okay, that is the thing. And the third, now the most important differences. These two, third and four, are most important. There is no parsing available in universal forwarders. Okay, no parsing is available. What is meant by parsing? Anybody know? So parsing is nothing but, see, if the log files will be there, right? Log files will be of different size. They will be of different lines actually. Some log files will be of 10 lines, and 10 lines of code will be there. Some will be a few only. Like that, in different sizes it will be there. So those log files, for all those things, for all those events, it will be dividing into different lines. Okay, it will be dividing into different lines and different chunks. Okay, that is called as parsing. It will be dividing into small chunks, small data. So that is called as parsing. So this parsing is not available in universal forwarders, whereas parsing is available in heavyweight forwarders. Okay, that means what? Again, indexer also parsing is available because it is the component of this Splunk only. So again, before that, if you want to have any parsing, you can also do that in heavyweight forwarder. Before indexer parses, you can have the parsing in universal heavyweight forwarder. That is the important thing here. Okay, but whereas it is not possible. If you are using a universal forwarder, only data will come into the indexer. That's it. No parsing will be happening. And again, no indexing or routing is possible. Again, there will be no indexing and there will be no routing. Whereas heavyweight forwarder, indexing will be there because it is common as Splunk. Okay, indexing will be there and routing will also be there. What is meant by routing again? Routing means, if you have any idea on programming language, okay, if you have any idea on what we call MVC, MVC, okay, model view control architecture. So what they will be doing actually, for example, if I have a website www.abc.com, okay, www.abc.com, and the website address will be like this, right? abc.com/login. So if there is /login means it will go to the login page. If for the login page, the URL will be looking like this. Correct or not? If you are in login page, the URL will be looking like this. Correct? So now what happens? There will be a router. What is that? There will be a router. What does this router do internally? This is called as token. What is this? Login. This login is there, right? This is called as token. So taking this token, what does it do? It will route this token to a controller. What is that? Controller. Login controller. Okay, it just route this token to a login controller. This actual login controller resides over here. Okay, login controller. Similarly, if a password token is there, if you are in somebody are there in a change password page. Okay, so now somebody is in change password page. CP, for example, CP is the token. So CP controller. So it will be routed to where? CP controller. CP controller. Somebody is in forgot password page, for example. Okay, forgot password page. So if you again this forgot password page, it will be routed to some FP controller. Like this, each and every token that is available on the website, that is available on the URL. Okay, that will be routed to different things. That will be routed to different controllers. Why like that? So this login controller will be routed to this login token will route it to login controller. Okay. And the CP change password will be routed to change password controller, and this forgot password token will be routed to forgot password controller. So why? Because so now first of all the code will be there will be no clumsy code again. So whatever the code, whatever the business logic is there, it will be done according to the controllers itself. Okay, whatever the first of all then whatever the business logic is there which you are writing for this particular code login page, it will be in this controller only. Okay, for again for change password, it will be in this controller only. For forget password, it will be in this controller only. So there will be no clumsiness, everything is separate. Okay, so it is easy for even for the developer also, it will be easy. So again like this it will be there again from model and view also it will be there. That is different until here we require. So it will be routed like these things. So the developers they can work on different things. A designer can work on a view files because views are separate, and a developer he can concentrate on the business logic because he will be these controllers are different. So he will be writing code in these controllers. Like that it will be segregated so that there will be no clumsiness and each one everyone can work on the different things. That is one thing. And second thing is that even the traffic is more also, that will be routing to different controllers, right? The traffic will not be again on the same page. If I wrote all these things in the same page, if there is more traffic, it will be coming to the page, right? The page will be there will be more burden on the page. Okay, there are chances that the server gets stuck, correct or not? So in that way also it will be useful. Okay, this is the concept of routing the files. Okay, so similarly in Splunk also, what does it do? It route those files. It routes the log files. Okay, this you remember, that is called as routing. It routes the log files, whereas in universal forwarders it does not have that feature, whereas in heavy forwarder it will have that feature. Okay, so these are the basic differences. Okay, this is important, please do remember. What are those? It does not contain any GUI. A universal forwarder does not contain any GUI, whereas heavy forwarder contains. A universal forwarder works in almost all the kinds of operating systems, whereas heavy forwarder is not like that. It will works only on the Windows, Mac, and Linux only. And the heavy universal forwarder doesn't have any parsing, whereas heavyweight forwarder will have parsing, and universal forwarder will not have indexing and routing also, whereas heavy forwarder will be having indexing and routing. Okay, clear? Now, so let us go here. So now these are the forwarders. So in order to, now what we have understood, in order to data to be forwarded from the client side servers, in order that the data should be forwarded from the client side servers, first of all we have to install forwarders into these client side machines. First of all we have to install forwarders into these client side machines. Now we have known that there are two types of forwarders. One is universal forwarder and the other is the heavyweight forwarder. Either we can install universal forwarder or we can install heavyweight forwarder. Okay, we install universal forwarder or heavyweight forwarder like this. See, for example, here web server is there. We have installed universal forwarder in this. Here test server is there. We have installed universal forwarder again in this. Okay, networking server is there. We think that it is networking server. We cannot predict the data, right? Whatever the there will be many there will be many data actually. Without having any bounds, the data will be growing in the networking servers. So we will be installing heavy forwarders like that. Okay, so that is the thing. Whatever the forwarders are there, we may install in the client servers based upon the requirements. Okay, that is the thing. So what is a forwarder? A forwarder is a component of the Splunk which forwards the data to other forwarders or to the indexer. So what is a forwarder? A forwarder is a component of the Splunk which forwards the data to other forwarder or to the indexer. Okay, in some cases what happens, if you have universal forwarders, so if you have universal forwarders, then they'll be routed, then they'll be forwarded to, first of all, heavyweight forwarders. Okay, so if you have a very few, if you have only 5 to 4 MBs of files, universal forward 5 to 4 MBs of files, if you have 100 universal forwarders, only the data may not come up to even some 500 GB like that. Data may not come up to even some 50 GB also. So then what you will do, you will forward, first of all, you will forward those files to the heavyweight forwarder. Okay, we'll forward those things to the heavyweight forwarder and then you will forward that to the indexer. Okay, that's why the forwarders are the components of the Splunk that will be forwarded to other forwarders, other heavyweight forwarders, or to the indexer. Okay, we may define the forwarders like that. Okay, now coming to the indexer. So indexer, what does it do? It stores the data, it ingests the data. Okay, it ingests the data, whatever the data that is forwarded by the forwarders, whatever the data that is getting from the forwarders, it ingests the data and it won't put the data actually, it won't store the data. Where does it stores them? It will stores the data into indexes. Index or indexes. Index is singular, indexes is plural. Okay, index or indexes. By default, the default index will be there in Splunk. This is called as main. Okay, the default index in Splunk is called as main. Please do remember. Okay, the default index is main. Apart from that, you can also create indexes. Okay, so in the created indexes, you can place all these collected data into these indexes. Okay, into these indexes. So what is an indexer? An indexer ingests the data forwarded by the forwarders and place the data into the indexes. Okay, that is the definition of indexer. An indexer ingests the data forwarded by the forwarders and puts the data into the indexes. Okay, that is the thing. It only does this. It only ingests the thing, ingests, it take that and it will put the data into the indexes. It does not have any capability to store actually. Just like a syringe. If you take a syringe actually, so what does it do? It will the medicine, it will ingest the medicine and it will place it into the human body, right? So similarly, like that only, it ingests the data and it places these things into the indexes. That is the thing. So again, what are these indexes do then? Indexes, it will take the data from the data forwarded by the forwarders or the indexer. It will collect the data that is forwarded by forwarders or the indexer. So indexes are nothing but it's also a component of the Splunk where they will collect the data forwarded by the forwarders or from the indexer. That is that what it does actually. So it will collect the data that is forwarded by forwarders or from the indexer and stores in it. Okay, this is the thing. This is called as the indexer. Now coming to search head actually. What does the search head do? Search head searches the indexes. What does the search head do? Searches the indexes by using a SPL query. By using a SPL query. Again, who writes this SPL query? The developer, the Splunk developer will be there, right? He will be writing some SQL queries based on some conditions. So taking that particular SQL query, it searches the data. It searches the data available in the indexes. Okay, available in the indexes, and then it produces the results. So in order to define search head is a component of the Splunk, okay, which searches by using a SQL query defined by a Splunk developer and searches the indexes available in the indexer, and then it produces the knowledge objects like reports, alerts, and visualizations. Okay, this is what search head is. A search head is the component of the Splunk which searches the data, which searches by using a SQL query given by a Splunk developer in the indexes available in the indexer, and then produces the knowledge objects like reports, alerts, and visualizations. Okay, is it clear? Forwarders, indexer, indexes, and search head. All the four things are clear for you? Sinaj?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Great. So now, so again, SQL query may look like this actually. See, we'll be discussing in the later classes. So index equals to product underscore index, like this SQL query will be index equals to product underscore index. This means the index name. From this particular index only we are specifying this Splunk. Here indexes are there, right? So only from this index name only from particular index you have to search. We are specifying to search head. We are giving that command to search head. Okay, again source type, all these things, what is index, what is source type, I will be specifying. What is this pipe symbol, okay, table, product ID, product name, all this for example sake I have given over here. We'll be discussing. So based on the search, what you have to understand here, based on a criteria, based on search query, these are called as SPL queries. What is that? SPL, Splunk processing language. This is not SQL, not structured query language. SQL is different from SPL. This is Splunk own language. It is not derived from any language. Please do remember. Okay, this is Splunk only derived this language. It is not derived from SQL or some other thing else. Splunk processing language, it is the proprietary right of the Splunk only, right? So using the queries, it will be searching the indexes, right? Now it is, now you have understood. Good. Now whatever the data that is coming from the forwarders, okay, whatever the data that is coming from the forwarders, now is it feasible to store in a single index? Whether we have to store in a single index, anybody can specify. The data can be stored in a whatever the data may be, irrespective of the size actually. So if some data is coming from different servers, is it feasible to store in a single index, or we have to store in multiple indexes? Always it is good to store in multiple indexes, right or wrong? Because if you store in a single index, the data may be crashed actually. Okay, so whenever the thing is there, we have to, whenever it is coming from different servers, we have to store in a different indexes only. Okay, why? Because for again these log files will be based on retention periods. See, the log files will, we should archive or we should remove the log files from time to time. Otherwise the data size will be growing, right? The client will not put the log files like that only, right? On how much of hard disk space it is not available if we keep on doing like that only for years, correct or not? So it should be removed at a certain point in time. So for high retention periods, the retention period is important over there. For retention period, so for example, if data is there, web server data is there, if you place this data in this particular index, okay, if tester data is there, if you place this data in the particular second index, okay, if networking server data is there, if you place this data in the third index, then it will be very good actually, because you can have different retention periods. So if you think that okay, web server data is not so important, okay, for example say this data will be maintained, should be maintained for 1 year. The client has said to you that for 1 year the data has to be maintained. After 1 year there is no scope for us, we have to remove the data. Okay, log files, our systems we cannot afford more than that. That should be deleted. Then what will we do? Okay, we consider that okay, web server data that is good for 3 months. Testing server data, this is also okay. Already tested data will be there. This is also good for 3 months. But network server data, we cannot predict the data. There will be so kinds of errors whichever we cannot predict. So this should be there for at least 6 months. Okay, like that we can have our own retention periods, and it is easy, right? After 3 months only we know that only in this particular index the web server data is there, then we can delete or we can archive only this particular index, right or wrong?
Yes.
Similarly this test server data, this also if it is in a particular index, then we can have the retention period of a particular index and we can clear the data. Like that we can have retention periods. That is one thing. Second is that easy access. So whatever the data, we know that the particular web server data is in particular index, particular test server data is in particular index. So whenever we want to access, we can just in SQL queries we can just mention that index name and we can access that. Correct or not? So easy accessing of data will be easy accessing, and easy processing also, fast processing also will happen, right? If the data is everywhere, if every data is there in a single index, then it has to search all the things. If you are searching for a particular web server data, then it has search all the things if it is in a particular single index. But now if it is in different indexes, if you are searching with that particular name of the index, then it will get only of the particular index type. So that is the thing. Okay, easy access and high availability of the data will also be there. High availability of the data. So as you will have a limited index, okay, the indexing will be limited only, right? Only if you are searching for web server data, then only you will go to the web server index. Otherwise, you want to see its face, right? So then high availability of the data will be there. Longevity will be there. So for all these benefits, you should always use in different indexes. Okay, different indexes. Whenever data is coming from different sources, it is always better to have in different indexes. Whether we should not keep a single index, if you ask, if you keep, that is your own risk. Okay, if the server crashes, that is your own risk. So it is always better to have different indexes. Okay, that is the thing. Okay, so this is the basic architecture for Splunk actually. Okay, this is the basic architecture for Splunk. So now you have clear understood, right? Forwarders, we have discussed about forwarders, indexes, search head, okay, and all those kinds of stuff. About the basic architecture we have discussed right now. Now we'll be moving to see all these things will be in the admin part, we'll be seeing in detail. For your understanding, I'm giving you a blueprint so that you can understand better. All because the components you have to understand, you will be understanding better. I'm explaining in detail, taking this much of time. Okay, right. And now next component is the deployment server. Okay, so okay, it is fine, Kiran. Now you have said that the universal forwarders will be in the different servers, right? In different servers, in web server, test server, networking server, like that. So okay, let us, before moving to this one, how do the forwarders will be stored in the different servers? These are the client locations, right? These are remotely available. These servers are not in our premises, whereas indexer and searched will be in our premises. Okay, this will be in our premises if you think that they are on-premise kind of thing. Otherwise, it will be in our control. Even in cloud also, even if they are available in cloud as well, it will be in our control. But this will be under the control of the client, right? This will be under the control of the client. We cannot access without the permission of the client. So how will we? We have thought that we have to put universal forwarders or heavyweight forwarders into these servers. So how will you do that? We cannot manually go and install there, right? We will go manually go and install. Even though if you do that, some hundreds of servers will be there at the client location. Okay, if
the customer has to do it on their own.
What is that?
It won't be on the Splunk side, so the client has to do it on their own, right?
Why does the client do? He has given you the project to do it again? Will he work on that? If it is so kind enough, he will do that, but he won't do that like that. So it is not like that. But what will you do? We will be having configuration management tools. Okay, configuration management tools. Okay, so with these configuration management tools like Ansible, Puppet, Chef. Okay, these are all DevOps tools actually. So we need not don't fear actually. You need not know about DevOps. The DevOps guy, whoever is there in the organization, he will be configuring some YAML files. He will be deploying some YAML files on these servers. Okay, where he will in these YAML files he will be writing some rules, some set of rules where it has to be installed the universal forwarders or the heavyweight forwarders kind of thing. So these things will be installing. So he will be monitoring over here and he will be installing. So like that will install. Okay, this is for your information. Okay, this is just for your information. There is nowhere concerned with our Splunk. Okay, no need to worry. So how we can do means like that by using configuration management tools will be there. So by using those tools, we can able to install on the client servers. Okay, so that is the thing. So okay, now fine. Now we have whatever the software that is required to forward the files we have installed by the configuration management files. So the configurations, our own configurations, our own Splunk configurations, if you want to install on the remote servers, on the client servers located with the client, how will we do that? How will we do that means by using the deployment server. Deployment server comes into picture then in order to install the configurations, in order to provide the configurations, in order to provide the updates, in order to provide the apps for all those for the remote, not only for remote servers, not only for remote components of the Splunk, even for the components available on on-premises also, the deployment server will be providing all those things. Okay, why? Because again I have told you, right, if a software giant like e-commerce giant like Amazon is there, some hundreds, thousands of servers will be there. So how can they manage that? By if they can't, even though if this thing is there, a person can't sit, and even though you use configuration management tools also, you cannot do manually from here also. So by using a deployment server, everything will be get into the control of deployment server. Once if you add these components of the Splunk as a client to the deployment server, everything will come under its control. Everything will come under its control. Which control? Deployment server's control. So now whatever the deployment server say, that will be installed on these machines, whether it may be remotely available or available on premises. Okay, so that is the thing, that is the use of the deployment server. So what does the deployment server do? The deployment server is the component of the Splunk which provides all the configurations, updates, apps to all the components of the Splunk, either available remotely or available on premises. That is the task of the deployment server. It provides configurations, updates, apps to all the components of the Splunk, to all the other components of the Splunk, available either remotely or on premises. So forwarders, universal forwarder or heavyweight forwarder, whatever it may be, and again indexer, indexes, search head. Okay, for all those things, it will be providing the configurations. Okay, that is the task of the deployment server. Now how does it do? That is the question. So how does it do? So first of all, you have to add these servers as a clients. Okay, whatever the not only forwarders, whatever the thing you want to add as whatever the thing you should get configured by the deployment server, you should add those components as a client to the deployment server. You should add it as a client to the deployment server. You should add as a client to the deployment server. And no need that you should not need it is not necessary that you should add everything. For example, you want only universal forwarders to be added as the clients, then you can do that without heavyweight forwarder. Or you want to add such only without indexer, you can do that. Okay, so there is no need that it is you should add all the things only, whatever the things only. If you want to add the part of the things as well, you can add it. I have specified, I have forgot one thing to specify yesterday. So please, all of you people can ping your names and mobile numbers in the chat window. That will be useful for the management team. Actually, they have told me yesterday also. They have told me I forgot to tell with you. Please, everyone, you can ping your names and mobile numbers
in the chat window.
Yeah, in the chat window. That will be great. That will be useful for the admin team, actually, so the management team. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that is the thing. So now coming back to our Splunk. So first of all, what we have to do, we have to add the components of the Splunk, whatever the configurations we have to get from the deployment server. We have to add them as a client to the deployment server first of all. Okay, how does we do? We can do, see, everything we can do from the front end. Okay, not everything, of course. Almost all the things actually we can do from the front end, from the GUI, from our interface, web interface. Okay, from the front end we can do. From the command line interface we will do. From the terminal, from the command line interface will be there, right? From the command line interface we can do, and again using configuration files also we can do. Okay, all these three things I will be specifying for you. Okay, so nobody specifies all the three things, but I will be specifying right from the from the front end, from the command line interface, and from the this thing as well, configuration files. So when you go to the production, actually sometimes they may disable the front end, okay, because due to some security reasons. If that is the case, then you have to work only with, from the command line interface or from the configuration files. So knowing all these things, it will be handy for you. So then you need not get panic at that particular point in time. Okay, so that is why I'll specify all those things. Don't worry. So add, so we have to add clients. How will you do that? We should use from the command line interface. As I told you, I'll be specifying all those things later. For now, for your understanding sake, I am giving you this information. So how will we add that? From a command line interface, we have to give this command. What is that? /splunk add deploy poll. These are the keywords. /splunk add deploy poll deployment server IP address :8089. Splunk add deploy poll deployment server IP address :8089. Splunk will have different port numbers actually for each and everything. The port numbers are pre-configured actually. There is no need that you have to use those port numbers only. Okay, there is no need to use those port numbers only, but those are pre-configured. If your server has occupied with some other things with that particular port number, then you can change it. Otherwise, you can use the same port number. So for management port number 8089 is the management port number. Okay, I will be again discussing, but now for your information, I'm telling you. Okay, so 8089 is the management port number. So whenever there is management kind of things, then you have to use it. Now what is the now what is our where we are in deployment server? Deployment server is managing the different components of Splunk, right? That's why we are using management port number over here. Okay, that's why we are using management port number 8089. Okay, this is the command /splunk add deploy poll deployment server IP address :8089 will be the command. If you give this command, automatically that client will be added to the deployment server. Okay, that client will be added to the deployment server. So this is the thing. Now once like that, if you want to add all the clients, or just now I have told, right, or if you want to only a part of the clients, if you only some of the clients, if you want to add, you can add it. Okay, that's your wish. Okay, you have only indexes I have added here, only web server only only web server test server I only have added here instead of networking server, only such side I have added here. Like that, you can also add whatever the things you want. And next, the next thing is the creating server classes. What is that? Creating server classes. This is important actually. What is server class? Everything is important. Now, what is server class? What are server classes? Server classes are nothing but creating a group of components of this Splunk, making the components of the Splunk as a separate groups. These are called as server classes. Server classes are nothing but maintaining the components of this Splunk as a separate groups. So why to maintain separate groups like that? For example, in your organization, okay, in your organization there will be HR department, right? There will be HR department. What does the HR do? He or she, what does those people do? For example, if there is a holiday list, January 1st week will be having holiday list, right? So holiday list, what will they do? Will they send email to each and everyone? Anyone can specify. Will they send email to each and everyone? Holiday list. If there is a holiday list, will HR people will send that email to each and everyone?
No, there will be a distribution list.
Actually, there will be a group. There will be some groups, right? They'll be having some groups actually. So they'll be having some groups. So based on that groups, they will shoot out the mail. Well, they will be having all the members for that particular thing, for that particular task. Holiday list is useful by everyone, right? It is required by everyone. So then they will be sending for all the employees. They will be having a separate group. For all the employees, they will shoot out that mail with the holiday list. So that is one thing. And next thing is that, for example, if you have if you have a appreciation from the client, what they will do, only then they won't shoot the mail for all the employees. Then they will be having a prior to that, whatever the project is there, that project the people who are working on the particular project, those people list will be there. So they will be keeping a separate group, and they will be sending that mail, the appreciation mail, only to that particular group, right or wrong, like that. Similarly, a person is there who is not performing well, he has to be terminated. Okay, so then they won't send mail to all the people again, only to that particular person only, to that particular one. Then they won't group any group, they will only to the particular person they will send the mail. So similarly, how in an organization the HR uses different groups in order to send mails, okay, in order to send the contents. Similarly, Splunk uses server classes, because there will be some configurations, there will be some deployments, there will be some apps to be sent to certain groups. Okay, there are some configurations or deployments that should be sent to certain groups. Okay, so in order to in order to provide that facility, in order to maintain that, what does Splunk do? Splunk asks us to create server classes. It asks us to create groups of the components of the Splunk. You have to specify the groups of the components of Splunk, definitely. Even though if you are sending it to a single component of Splunk also, you have to specify it as a group. Okay, that is the thing. So those are called as server classes. So that's why see all clients, we can create all clients group. All clients means every component of Splunk will be there. All the components of the Splunk will be there. Forwarders will be there. In forwarders again, universal forwarders, heavy forwarders will be there. Indexes will be there. Okay, if there are several indexers again, several indexers will be there. Okay, search head will be there. So all these things, even though search head is a single thing, or here search head is a single thing, even then if you want to deploy configurations, you have to add it as a server class. Okay, you have to add it as a server class, then only it will be worked. So like that, if you want all clients, you can all clients. If you want a group of indexer groups only, if you want for indexer groups only, you can give index group. You have create a index group server class. If you want forwarder only forwarder groups, then you can create forwarder group, such a group. Universal forward group only you want, UF group you can create. Like that, server classes you have to create, and then you have to deploy the particular configurations. But not it itself is not sufficient again. Okay, once after creating clients, again you have to create server classes, and after doing these two things, it is not sufficient again. You have to create an app where on the deployment server itself, once if the client is added to deployment server, you need not see the face of the client again. Please do remember. Okay, once if the client is added to deployment server, you need not see the face of the client again. Only deployment server does everything. So now after creating server classes, you have to create an app. Okay, so how to create an app again? This is the command from CLI /Splunk create app UF. If you are creating an app called UFA config, you have to create like this /Splunk create app UF config. This is the command you have to give in the command line interface. That creates an app. Okay, that creates an app UF config. So now you can deploy it to the server, whatever the server class you want. For example, this UF config server class, this means what? Universal forwarder config, right? The meaning of this one is UF config means universal config. So you can deploy it to UF group. Okay, so whatever the configurations you are giving to this app, it will go automatically redirecting to the universal forwarders. There are two universal forwarders, right? For us, for these two universal forwarders, it will be happening. Okay, one of those two things. So for example, say if you want to send the data, if you want whatever the data coming from the universal forwarders, okay, whatever the log files that are coming from the universal forwarders, you can send in such a manner that you can specify in the deployment server itself, you can configure in the deployment server itself that the data coming from the universal forwarders should go only to particular index. You can in this particular indexer and to this particular index or this index, like that also you can configure in the deployment server itself. Okay, that all we can do by using deployment server. So like this, deployment server configure the app with host name, index name, like that we can configure whatever the index name we want. Whatever the host name means the machine name, whatever the to which, that means indexer, to which indexer we want, to which index name also we can specify. That's what I have said, right? So to this index 2 or index 3 we can specify, and we can directly send it this particular index. Like that we can configure from the deployment server itself. Okay, that is the thing. Now as deployment server, what is deployment server basically? First of all, what is deployment server? Deployment server is nothing but a component of the Splunk, right? It itself is the component of the Splunk. Okay. So now what we have discussed, it can configure every component of the Splunk, right? Deployment server configures every component of the Splunk. It has got the capability of configuring every component of the Splunk. Then in that case, can I add another instance of deployment server as a client to the deployment server itself? Can I add another instance of the deployment server? This is a good interview question and a certificate question as well. Okay. So can I add another instance of the deployment server as a client to the deployment server? Because deployment server configures, right? Deployment server configures every component of the Splunk. It is for that only. That's the duty of deployment server is that only. It will configure, it provide apps, will provide updates to all the components of the Splunk, either available remotely or on premises. Correct? So now can I add another instance of the Splunk as deployment server, and can I treat it as a client to the deployment server again? Can I do that? No, you cannot do that. Once if a deployment server is there, once if you configure deployment server, okay, once if we have made a deployment server active, one instance of this Splunk as deployment server, once you have made one instance of the Splunk as deployment server, it will be configuring all the components of the Splunk. That's great. But again, you cannot add a deployment server. You cannot add as a client. Okay, that is a good interview question as well as a certificate question. Please do remember. So deployment server cannot be added as a client to itself. Okay, please do remember that. So this is about the deployment server. Okay, so this is about the deployment server. So tomorrow we will be moving to the distributed environment and indexing cluster and all those kinds of stuff. Okay, so it is clear, right? It is clear for everyone. Basic components of Splunk: forwarders, indexer, search head, indexes, and deployment server. These are all we have discussed today. Is it clear? Or are you having any doubts?
Hi Kiran, Anish here.
Yes.
Today I joined first class of you.
Uh-huh.
So I just want to know, like, is this course is beneficial for the production supports guys?
Production support in the sense you are into coding.
Yes, I know like little bit of coding.
No. What are you doing? What are you doing actually?
Java support.
Okay. So the thing is that, see, this is a log monitoring tool actually. Okay. So the thing is that, yeah, it can be used. See, Splunk will be used in different ways actually. See, after some days, how it will be just like an Excel tool. It will, see, in some days, after some years, it will be used by everybody. It will become like an Excel tool actually. So
yeah,
right now also, right?
Yes, this
yeah,
kind
right
of.
now also, if you want to have some errors in your JavaScript or something else, you can have the app downloaded from the Splunk, and you will be doing that only, right? So like that, it will be useful. But see, for you, actually, this is the knowledge which you have as a developer. It will be very good actually. So now you can directly shift into this field actually. Okay. What you can do is you can.
In the current current architecture, I have seen like forwarders here using web servers, test server, and network servers. So it's also support the network server logs.
Yeah, why not? That is
what kind of log
Splunk.
we are expecting in the network server?
What is that?
What kinds of logs will be like expecting like through that network
logs,
server?
whatever. For example, say if the logs will be generating as it is like that, right? So for example, if there is a problem with the network itself, so automatically whatever the problem is, that it will be registering in the log files. Okay. So if there is a problem with the router, those files will be registering in the things. If there is any problem in the switches, that will be registering. All those files will be forwarding to the indexers.
Okay, and through that UI we will just search that corresponding that error, and we'll get those error, right?
Yeah, that things will be analyzed by the Splunk actually. That is what the process of the Splunk, right? Okay, you have not attended the yesterday class and the workshop, right?
Yeah, that's what, like today first one. That's what.
Oh, what you can do is you can in YouTube you have got videos actually. Just type Durgasoft space Kiran space Ambadasu. So you will be having yesterday's class as well as workshop also. There I have given a use cases of Splunk, clear picture. So basically, I will also tell right now also. So what happens actually? Whatever the files, whatever the log files, whatever the system files, whatever the log files generated by a device or a machine, all those things, the Splunk will analyze the data. Splunk will analyze. Okay, it will come to the indexer and it will be stored in indexes. The search head will be there, right? It will be searching the data and analyzes that data on the live. It will be showcasing those errors. If there is any errors, those errors will be showcasing. Okay, and they will be produced as alerts, and those alerts will be on the live again through mails or through tickets, whatever it may be. They will be sent to this particular servers again. Servers in the sense to that the people who maintain those. For example, web server data will be sent to the developers. So if there is any problem in that one, they will be rectifying within the. So until unless they do not know the problem at all, okay, they need not know the problem. They are thinking that everything is fine, but even then it highlights some problems, saying that some problem is there, and then that thing will be sending to them actually. So now their life has become easy or not. Okay.
Okay,
So
so
now it will be.
okay, let's suppose if I have 10 web server, okay, so 10 web server corresponding all error, it will be like raise like mail or raise ticket for us, like it kind of this.
Yeah, actually the thing is that it will, yes, from all the servers, it will index the data and it will produce us some whatever it can, whatever Splunk can, Splunk will produce us. But the Splunk developer will be there, right? I have told you, we will be writing SQL queries in this class only. So what will he do? He will be expecting some things, right? He will be from this C, when the data is forwarding into this indexer, so he'll be having a basic idea, right? So he'll be expecting some errors and he configures that in the particular search head by using what? By using SQL queries. Okay?
Okay.
By SQL queries. Based on that criteria, it will search, it will analyze us. Okay.
Okay, so
and
in the array log, suppose I have looking some particular null pointer, so it will be given all the null pointer related error to us, right?
yes, exactly like that. So whatever your things you are expecting, that's what the development actually comes in. See, Splunk basically it itself produces. See, what is the task of the Splunk basically? It after it index, it reads every data, it reads everything except from, you see the demo video, you see yesterday video and the workshop video, you will have a clear idea. So it read everything, actually it will read everything except images and PDFs. Other than that, if you say XML file, if you say HTML file, if you say CSV file, if you say a log file, if you say system file, whatever may be, it will be reading. Not only reading, it will be indexing. Indexing means what? It will be dividing into small chunks. It will be producing some fields on its own in order to use those fields, and we can specify those. We can use those fields, and we can specify as a in order to find our errors. That is one use case. That is one thing. And again, with those same fields, we can generate our reports, our dashboards, all those kinds of stuff. That is another thing. Okay. For security issues also we can use. That is the another thing. So all these usefulness are there. I have discussed all these things in the previous class. Okay. This is the thing.
Okay.
And now other than that,
okay, one last question.
Let me complete. Yeah, let me complete this thing. So other than that, other than that also, 1 minute please. Sorry for the interrupt. So other than that, we can also extract our own fields. What Splunk generates, right? If you do not think that those are useful, or if your client requirements is somewhat different, then you can also extract your own fields also. That facility also Splunk provides. So there are all things that you can do. Tell me.
Okay, so as I said, like, okay, I need to look like null pointer in all of the web servers. So is there any UI from where I need to search?
Yeah, exactly. You will be having an UI. That's what I have said, right? See, this is the UI. We'll be discussing in the next classes that only how to search. There'll be UI, how to search, and all the search head is there, right? This is the regular thing. We'll be working.
Okay, and that is the SQL query that you need to search in the Splunk developer will be work as, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not only it is not as simple as such. He will be writing. He will be extracting fields by using regular expressions, cron jobs. Okay, by using various methods, lookups, commands. Okay, all those things he will be doing all these things, and he will be writing some reports, graphs, charts, dashboards, static, dynamic. All those things are there. Okay, we'll be discussing all those things. That is what yes, that is correct. That is what development comes in.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Got it?
Thank you. Yeah, got it.
So any more doubts?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
So please, everybody, please ping your names and phone numbers, please. They have particularly told me. Okay. If you're not done till now, please do that. Chart window. Okay, all have done. Okay. So some people have not given. I think Charan Gaud has given, Sinaj has given, Prakash has given, Sandeep, Anish. Okay. Okay. Somehow. Okay then. So everything is okay, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Great. So we'll be meeting the same time tomorrow. Okay. Until then, have a nice day. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Yes.
Bye.